So I've been a developer about 8 full months now, as a salaried developer, anyhow, professional developer. And one of the things I've really thought about was, what do I do after I get my job, after I get my big break, right? Like, so we're all in the grind and we finally get our big break. We worked hard, we got it. We got our junior level role, our whatever role it was as a developer, and how do we continue from there? And this is something I think is really important. And if you don't think about it and you just kind of, set a goal, it's like, oh, I just want to be a good developer, but how? And what does that entail? And how do I get to the next level, right? How do you go from a junior to a mid-level and mid to a senior? You just don't think, oh, it will happen. It could happen, 5 years down the road, you're a senior developer. But how do you make sure that you're going to be an interesting candidate and a good senior developer? And this is something that I thought about, so that if whatever happens, maybe it doesn't work out or it's not the perfect fit for you, that you're prepared to go elsewhere, or increase your money. Maybe you don't get the raise that you think you are and you're getting paid slightly below market value, and you say, fuck that, I want to get slightly above market value. How do we do that? What do we do? Well, for me, it was always important to continue learning. And that's a blanket statement, but let's start. Where do you start when you first get your big break, right? The first thing I did was I made sure that I was okay at work. Whatever technologies I worked in at work, I made sure that if I had gaps in it, and you will, right? So I had only worked with Angular for about a month and only on one project before they hired me. And I had major Angular gaps, AngularJS gaps. And I made sure that was my primary focus once I got hired. I was focusing on Angular, getting my HTML, CSS, make sure all the basics were covered for the job. Make sure I could function in the job space, in the role that I was hired to do. I wanted to make sure that I was at the level I needed to be. And whatever it is, there's always going to be a technology or a framework or a library or a database that you're not familiar with. There'll always be something that you're not at a proficient developer level. And it was a couple things for me. It was MySQL. I hadn't really touched MySQL in quite some time. It was Angular. And so that was what I focused on. I wanted to make sure that in terms of my professional work, I was in the clear. I was good to go. And that should be your first step. Now, what do you do on top of that? Because for me, it took me, I would say, about a month to about a month and a half to really get to where I felt okay. Now, I was still nervous. Don't get me wrong. Like, I had nerves out my fucking asshole until about 4 or 5 months. But I felt like, okay, based off the other developers I'm working with, I think I'm one of the better ones with what we're doing, and I think I have an understanding. Like, I can work with this stuff. I'm good. I can work with this stuff at home and at work, right? So once I hit that level where, you're always going to run into bugs and things like that, and, these little gotchas, but that was when I made my transition to focusing on new technologies. Now you're saying, well, why are you learning new technologies? Web development is a very fast-growing and fast-changing software department, if you will, or software genre category. And you have things like where one framework, I work in AngularJS. AngularJS is on its way to becoming a legacy tech. Some could even argue that it already is. And with Angular 2, 3, and 4 being out, and I'm sure 5 and 6 whenever they come, right? And a lot of work right now is in roles where you're actually they're taking AngularJS developers and they're training them in Angular 2 to convert most of the time an old AngularJS app into an Angular 2 app. So I started thinking about what technologies do I need to learn, and I started playing around with front end stuff. And I encourage you to do the same, right? And the reason I say wait till you're comfortable, right? Because you have to secure your job. Numero uno, right? Make sure you're good at your job. Numero dos, if you will, number 2. On the ladder of importance is you need to secure your future. You need to secure your skill set. You need to secure your money, right? And so there's more money typically, especially for newer developers in the newer technologies in web development. So you need to, if there's and before you go worry about the money, you need to make sure you're a full stack developer. I think that is really what and I didn't think about this at the first, because when I got hired, I was a front end developer primarily, with little to no back end experience. So what I spent the majority of my time on recently, as I realized this, it took me about 2.5 months of learning before I realized that I was going in the wrong direction. Which is part of the reason I want to make this video as well, so that you don't waste 2.5 months, right? We only have so much time to learn outside of work, and you need to use it to the best of your ability so that you can be as successful as possible. For me, I spent about 2.5 months kind of playing around with different front-end libraries, and it occurred to me that I actually never fully learned the mean stack. I never moved on to MongoDB. I never moved on to Express and Node. And I wasn't really I could work in the back end at work, and I was working on a skill set there, but I wasn't really a fully functional mean developer, and that was always my goal. And so I started filling in the gaps because, as I've said time and time again, from every survey you'll read, about 10% of the jobs are for front end, 25% are for back end, and 65% are for full stack developers. So if you want to make sure that you're future proof, you really do need to be a full stack developer, because that is the whole, and probably those front end back end developers are full stack developers to begin with, right? And so that really is how you get started. They hire, the biggest asset you can give to yourself going from a front end to a full stack developer. And so that was what I made sure I focused on, and I'm currently even getting better with. I'm building out, the back end projects and things like that on Free Code Camp, and building a portfolio in that. So that kind of goes on to my third point of once you have reached that full stack status where you're a mean developer, a MERN developer, a Rails developer, whatever it may be, you need to think about what's next, because you need to upgrade whatever legacy tech you're working with. In my case, it's AngularJS. You need to upgrade that to another framework, another front-end framework. You need to kind of keep everything fresh when it comes to your technologies. Now, this isn't a must. This is more if you always want to be able to hit the job market at any time for a relative nice amount of money. The idea supporting that being that newer tech is going to have less people learning it, which means there's going to be a less supply, but there's probably going to be less jobs to begin with. So it's a supply and demand sort of thing, and I tend to believe the supply is lower than the demand, which means you'll get paid slightly above, and also you won't be phased out so much, right? So because you're going to be on the curve, if you will. And this kind of goes on to these are some sort of plus points. Is I'm a big believer in personal projects to do these things. My personal project is obviously my YouTube channel, although I do have some others that I'm working on slowly but surely. I plan to release a course or two, and I plan to do some projects and learn some other languages and things like that. But the gist of it is the TLDR version of what you should do after you get your first big break, right, is one, fill in the gaps of your knowledge at your current workplace. That's crucial above all else. Next, if you're not a full stack developer, that is the biggest thing that you have missing. If that's it, that is above anything else in your life, is get that full stack status, right? Why would they hire 2 developers when they could hire 1, right? And it's like you're that one, and you want to be equipped to be that one. And when opportunity comes knocking, you need to be able to answer the door. And if you aren't a full stack developer, you're only going to get 10% of the opportunities potentially. The other thing is learning new technologies is really great, especially in web development. JavaScript's changing every week, right? That's the joke. It's like a new framework comes out every day, and it feels like it, like it sometimes. Personal projects. So these are things that I think are kind of important. I think it shows character, and I think it makes you an interesting candidate, and it gives you something to talk about in your interview, which makes you stand out. A lot of times, granted, you're going to have the skills, and you should, but if you're an interesting candidate and they think they can work with you and you're passionate, you might be able to beat out some more qualified candidates they don't want to work with. And I think personal projects are a great way of doing it, and it's one of the things I think helped me get my start as well. But I hope you guys think about that. And if you disagree with any of this, I'm always trying to learn, right? And I try to share whatever has worked for me and my experience, and not necessarily give advice, but just say what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And if you think I'm doing something wrong, let me know in the comments below. And if there's something I left out that you think is really important, go ahead and let me know as well. Definitely fill in the gaps, learn new things, start a project, start interesting projects. And a lot of the great things, guys, about being a developer is you have a lot of opportunity to start your own things that could actually make you money down the road. You never know what little side project that you start in 2017 and 2020 is making you $5,000-$6,000 a month or more, or just a couple $100. It's an interesting industry we're in, and I hope you take advantage of that. With that being said, guys, don't forget to join our Facebook group, Code Tech and Caffeine. The link is in the description. If you want to support me, you can at patreon.com/codingtutorials360. I'll see you next time. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll get to them if I can. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you're interested in coding bootcamp, check out devmountain.com, where housing is included in your price of tuition. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.